Intelligence isn't rare anymore, it's replicable. And if higher ed doesn't start designing for that reality, the institutions built to teach may be the ones left behind.
Hit it! That's what I'm talking about.
Wait! Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boys.
Welcome to Higher Ed Pulse, your no-fluff guide to artificial intelligence in higher ed. I'm Mallory Willsea, bringing nearly 20 years of edtech and marketing expertise straight to your earbuds. Higher ed leaders are expected to master AI overnight, but let's be real, no one has time to sift through every headline, hot take, or research report. That's why every Monday, I'll break down what actually matters, fast, clear, and to the point. Want to sound like the smartest person in the room at your next team meeting? You're in the right place. Let's dive in. Welcome back to Higher Ed Pulse. On today's episode, we dig into a recent New Yorker article. For centuries, knowledge was locked behind paywalls, degrees, and prestige, but AI has picked the lock, and now anyone with a browser has access. Intelligence isn't rare anymore, it's replicable. And if higher ed doesn't start designing for that reality, the institutions built to teach may be the ones left behind. Because in a world where models are shaping missions, sitting on the AI sidelines isn't safe, it's surrender. Joining me today is someone I've had the privilege of learning from firsthand for years, Voltaire Santos Miran. He is a legend, a storyteller, and a creative powerhouse who's helped shape digital experiences across higher ed for decades. And now he's on the team that's leading the charge on AI at Carnegie and helping institutions not only understand the stakes, but shape their role in this accelerating future. Voltaire, hello and welcome to the Pulse.
Thank you, Mallory. It's great to be here. Much appreciated.
Yay! Well, you've spent your career helping institutions design these digital experiences that are very human-centered and story-driven. So tell me, how is AI shifting how you are approaching that work or even your own creative process?
Oh, that's such a great question. And I would say that in the best of all possible worlds, what AI does is it helps us to focus more on the high-level creative and less on some of the production and some of the sort of permutation. So let's take an example. I think you, of all people, know the power of personalized content, right? And targeting people and giving them the information that they need in a framework that allows them to resonate with it. Now, you take a look, for instance, at an email campaign, and maybe you've got 10 emails in the campaign, but you've got 4 or 5 psychographic segments for each of those emails. Now, in the days before AI, what we would do is we would have a writer work on all of those permutations. And let's say you did 5 different versions of each email. You're looking at someone writing 50 emails with minor permutations for your audiences. The amount of fatigue, the creative fatigue that comes from doing that is immense. But if you can write a really strong base email and then use AI to personalize that email toward your segments, then you're able to generate some really great content that is founded on, the human work, but it also allows you to do more with less cognitive friction. So love that when we take a look at, for instance, digital ads, being able to resize digital ads based on one digital ad that is really well done. It's a game changer. And then when we look at personalizing content in real time and using chatbots on websites in order to target responses to people, the amount of targeting that you can do and the way that you can increase the sort of user experience, the value of the user experience becomes all that much greater through these.
I love it. And maybe the only thing you didn't mention is the time saving that all of this creates as well.
Let's talk about time saving. So my background is in web development. And one of the things that we love to do is experience mapping. And experience mapping is a qualitative process. And you've been through this with me, right? So we choose 10 people, we do these generative interviews, and each of these interviews will yield something like 150 data points, which you then collate, and then you sort through, and then you analyze, and then you illustrate. Now, normally in an experience mapping process before AI, it would take me about 5 to 7 hours for every single transcript that I took a look at.
Oh my gosh.
And it was going through, highlighting thoughts, feelings, and actions, taking all of that stuff from basically paper and putting it into a spreadsheet and then sorting through it. With the use of AI, I've been able to reduce the amount of time spent processing a transcript from 5 to 7 hours to 10 minutes. And then the amount of time that I save in terms of looking for redundancies, being able to rephrase the verbiage. It's amazing how much faster the process is. And what that does is it allows us to interview more people. So it's not only a time savings, but it's also a way to broaden the reach because we can talk with more people, analyze more content, and not rack up all the hours that you would normally do if you were doing this strictly through human means.
Yeah, you just took a month's worth of work and like put it into less than a week. And probably AI can also help find some correlations in the data that, us mere humans and our simple brains may not have found or would have taken us a month to find on the other side.
Yeah, and it's really interesting when you take a look at something like thoughts and feelings. There's a very, very blurry line between thoughts and feelings. And sometimes you can look at that and say, they said, I feel that, but they're actually thinking that, and vice versa. And what I found is that using AI was able to more accurately analyze the differences between the thoughts and the feelings. So it was very clear, this is a thought that they're expressing, and this is an emotion that they're going through. So I really love the way that it has added value to that qualitative process. And really, at the end of the day, it's AI in service to human connection. It's AI that allows us to be better at what we do, reach people more authentically and more effectively.
Y'all, I could just like sit here and talk to Voltaire about this stuff for like hours and hours. Or I could sit here and talk to you about anything for hours and hours.
Won't tell Tyler.
All right. So I am going to pull us back into the purpose of today's episode, which is examining this New Yorker piece. Now, friends, I'm dropping the link in our show notes, but it's a long read, fair warning. It's called Are We Taking AI Seriously Enough by Joshua Rothman. He just published this on April 1st. Spoiler alert, the answer is probably no, but let's save you some time from having to read this like 10-page article. It covers everything from existential dread to everyday use cases, like how AI is already writing code and making decisions that, right, like Voltaire was just talking about, used to require expert judgment. And Rothman explores how intelligence, which was once rare and institutionalized, is now being digitized and distributed and at speed. We're not just building tools anymore, he says. We're building thinking partners. And he compares this moment to the Cambrian explosion, where new forms of intelligence are evolving faster than we can even classify them. He warns that if AI reshapes how we work, think, and learn, it could also reshape or even replace the institutions built around those functions, like say our colleges and universities. So today, Volt and I are going to break down what this shift means for higher education and how institutions can stay relevant in a world where the monopoly on knowledge is breaking down very quickly. So Volt, you've clearly seen firsthand how institutions are responding to disruption. From your perspective, is higher education treating AI with the urgency that it deserves?
Ooh, that is such a great question. And I think that there are multiple ways of looking at this. When I think about AI in higher education, I think about it in two buckets. There's the bucket that is related to how we market and how we manage business operations. So it's the internal side of the house of how are we incorporating AI into our workflows to better reach our students, better serve our students throughout their time, their career as students, and how do we continue that relationship once they are alumni and hopefully are donors. That's one side of the house. The other side of the house is the pedagogy and curriculum side of the house. How is it that universities are looking at what the prognostications are for careers, for industries, and then reshaping pedagogy and curriculum in order to respond to that? So I would say in both cases, most of the clients that I've worked with fall somewhere in between the realizing that AI is important and experimenting with it, but also not being too alarmist about some of the worst of the predictions. So most of our clients are dipping their toes in the water and using AI to develop content, to help with their digital ad work, to help with their websites. And I know a number of faculty members who are beginning to incorporate AI into their approach and their teaching. But the real question, and this is what was so fascinating, somewhat frightening about the article, is what happens if the biggest sorts of predictions come through? So the article talks about nine pages summed up in 3 premises, or 2 premises and a conclusion. So premise 1, transformational technologies often face skepticism and hype, right? And eventually they can have profound societal impacts. Premise number 2, according to the article, is AI has reached that inflection point, that it is at a practical and impactful stage. And the rate at which AI is being developed, the rate at which it is evolving suggests that, as you said, it can reshape society, including crucial institutions like education, governance, and government and professional work. So the conclusion is we desperately need to get ahead of the game and move back beyond that sort of passive observation and begin to shape the way that AI is developed, the way it's integrated, the way that a policy is framed around it. Now, I'm going to mash this article up with another article that you sent me, which is the Bill Gates article. So for those of you who don't read People magazine, people.com, Bill Gates was recently on a show with Jimmy Fallon. And Bill, I can call him Bill, right?
Of course. We're pals.
Yeah, exactly. So Bill Gates said that within the next 10 years, AI will replace teachers, mental health professionals. He thinks that at a certain point, humans are not going to be needed for most things. Now, he says 10 years. I've read articles that say AGI, artificial general intelligence, is going to be here in 3 years. So when you start to think about the fact that someone like Bill Gates is saying, humans are not going to be needed anymore for so many of the things that we are going to college or university for, that makes you ask yourself, and hopefully others, well, how does that transform the way that we approach education? And how does that transform the way that we work? And that there are no really easy answers, but the point of the article is we're past the point of conception. We're past the point of this all being theoretical. We are in the thick of it. And if we do not become more active in shaping AI policy, in shaping the way that AI is developed, then we're going to face a world in which decisions are made for us about how AI is going to impact society, impact the world.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. So I don't think Bill Gates is describing a world where we all get to sleep in until noon and just like take hot yoga all day long. But I was really struck by how quickly that future of AI may actually replace us is going to come, because I think the narrative of the last couple of years, and certainly, working for Element 451 and thinking about how the company thinks about AI and how it augments some of our human skills, right? Like, I think there's a very healthy fear out there that it is going to replace us, and that interview with Bill Gates certainly didn't assuade anybody who is on the side of that spectrum that is more fear-based or even maybe more skeptic about things. But I want to bring us back into why higher ed really does need to be paying attention to this right now, regardless of where you fall on that fear spectrum, because I think AI is still solving problems in a very meaningful way. And in the article, in the New Yorker article, the author talks about how he's used AI to help his mother-in-law navigate this real estate deal, right? It's casual, but it's high stakes for those individuals. And I'm curious what you see as the equivalent in higher ed right now, because I think if we can start to overcome some of the fear and some of the skepticism with very clear use cases that like actually take us back 10 minutes ago to the conversation we were having around the time efficiency and just insights that you can pull out of those experience map transcripts that you were talking about, right? Like that's a very clear use case. So I don't know, Vol, are there some other ones out there? What is the equivalent of the mother-in-law navigating the real estate deal, but in higher ed?
Yeah, that is a really great question. And and the way that I'll try to answer that, I'll bring in a really great recent article from the Nielsen Norman Group. They talk about the 4 superpowers of AI. And the 4 superpowers of AI are number 1, content creation. Number 2, summarizing text. Number 3, basic data analysis. And number 3, perspective taking, or ironically, building empathy through AI. And when you think about those 4 things, you can apply that in multiple ways, pretty much in any job that you have. So I can give you some really good examples of the way that I'm seeing clients use AI and the way that we're using AI right now in those 4 areas. So for creating content, we've already talked about the fact that AI allows you to create segmented content based on psychographic data much more easily, much more quickly. So you can scale up your content production and at the same time, keep your costs down and minimize what I call cognitive friction or creative fatigue. So that goes from anything from generating emails to writing annual fund letters to changing the copy on your web pages, your key website pages to more accurately match your brand. So those are ways that we are using AI and clients are using AI. I think that at a certain point, we're going to get to a reality in which AI assistants outnumber the actual humans in any sort of conference call, right?
Yes.
So when I take a look at my Zoom, I will see like 10 AI assistants, all of which are summarizing the conversations and reminding us of all of our points of action. And I've also been called out by my colleagues for my AI showing up when I don't. So it's really great from the standpoint of it in a meeting-driven society like what that we have. I sometimes have 12, 13 meetings a day. I think my record for a week is 45 meetings.
Oh my.
Over the course of 5 days. Now, without AI, there would be no way for me to be effective in going to those meetings, remembering what I'm supposed to do, and meaningfully contributing to follow-ups. That's a second use case scenario. Basic data analysis. We've talked about that already in qualitative, for instance. And then in terms of perspective taking, it really does allow you, as you are taking a sort of user-centered approach to whatever you're doing, to get into the hearts and heads of people that you are trying to reach. And AI is ironically very good at simulating the sort of mindset and heart set of audiences that you're trying to reach. So I think that in higher education, particularly in marketing and communications for higher education, AI is really well positioned to help us to be more effective at what we do without abdicating our responsibility to be thinking, smart, experienced individuals who are bringing human sensibility and human analysis to the situation at hand.
All right. So we clearly have AI use cases that are going to make us normal people's lives better, right? Those of us who do spend our weeks in meetings or have to create content or analyze data, or maybe have not been able to replace the 3 staff members who left over the past year, right? And can't refill that headcount and have lost that expertise. So we have that bucket. Then we've got the bucket of Bill Gates saying we're just all going to get replaced within the next decade. So let's end on this, because I think one of the more startling predictions in the article is that AI could rewrite, not just disrupt, but rewrite entire institutions, including our colleges and universities. And the article also points out that the people who are shaping AI right now are taking it seriously, and the rest of us are just watching. So let's put those two things together. How can higher ed, first of all, stop sitting on the sidelines and actually become a more visible and active voice in this conversation? And if that doesn't happen, what is at risk for our universities if they're not moving faster and thinking bigger?
Yeah. I would say that in terms of shaping AI policy and AI strategy, higher education has been pretty much in the shadows. Now, they haven't been completely quiet about it, but they haven't been very visible about it. So universities across the country are involved in research and thought leadership, in education and curriculum development, in certain cases, policy advisory and advocacy. And then in other cases, creating institutes, partnerships, different ways to explore responsible use of AI. But those are all what I would consider sort of voluntary and almost, I think you said it best, on the sidelines. To be honest with you, I don't really know. I don't have clear line of sight for how higher education can actually take more of a lead. Because as the article points out, the people who are driving AI policy, the people who are driving AI strategy are basically technologists and people like Bill Gates who have a lot of money and a lot of high level vision. So a lot of, I think, the way that higher ed can be an active player in AI right now, given where we are politically, given where we are in terms of the economy, given who the AI players are, I think that higher ed's best gambit for being involved is figuring out how to apply AI in a mindful way, both in terms of business practice and also in terms of pedagogy and curriculum.
Well, if this episode's been about higher ed losing its monopoly on knowledge, I think the truth bomb is that a lot of institutions still haven't figured out how to use the knowledge they already have. And yes, I am talking about data, because we are all sitting on a lot of it: CRM data, admissions data, marketing data. It's all there, but it's so often stuck in silos and it doesn't speak to each other. And that does not help us as marketing and communications leaders make smarter decisions. So, friends, that's exactly why Enrollify is hosting a webinar called Connecting the Dots, Visualizing Your Higher Ed Data Relationships on April 24th at 2 p.m. Eastern. This will not be some boring CRM tutorial. It will be a practical session on how to actually see and use your data across systems to do the kind of strategic thinking that we would love AI to help us with. So register at enrollify.org/dots. And trust me, if you've enjoyed this conversation with Voltaire, you definitely will want to sign up for that webinar. Vol, 20 minutes just flies right by when you and I are chatting. I think we're going to have to do it again sometime. A special thank you to you. Any parting thoughts before we wrap this one up?
Oh, wow. Well, Mallory, first of all, I will talk with you anytime. You are my favorite, and I aspire.
Don't tell Tyler. No.
Don't tell Tyler. The parting thought I would say is that it's really interesting in the final line of that People interview that Bill Gates does. He said something along the lines of, "But we will decide. We will decide how humans are going to fit into society at the end of this whole AI journey that we're on." And I would say that, one of the things that we have always focused on, me personally and Carnegie where I work, is this idea humans need to continue to be at the center of the narrative. That we are the ones who should be deciding how we integrate AI, and that AI should make our lives better They should give us more autonomy. They should give us more agency. They should not replace us. Now, that is not an eventuality. That is not a given. That is a choice. And it is a choice that we continually have to make in the way that we apply AI mindfully to our work.
And that's the mic drop moment, my friends. Thank you for joining us for another episode of The Pulse, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye. The Higher Ed Pulse is part of the Enrollify podcast network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our show helps higher ed marketers and admission pros find their next big idea and features a selection of the industry's best as your hosts. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.